Hello, I'm Mira Reisberg. Welcome to Mondays with Mira. And we look at fabulous picture books and then we talk about what makes them so fabulous. Today, we're going to talk about the story of the little mole who went in search of Whodunit. And this is by Werner Hallwarts and Wolf Earlbrook. And this book was originally printed in Europe and then picked up here in the United States. Anything that's a little edgy, like here, this is a book about poop. And Americans tend to be squeamish about a lot of bodily things or, basically bodily things with kids. So, if you see books about things like that, generally they've been printed elsewhere and then picked up here. Though American publishers are getting a little more progressive and getting a little braver. So enough said, let's get started. Oh, and I want to say one other thing. This is a plot-driven story, which means it starts with a problem and then the protagonist, in this case the little mole, sets about overcoming that problem. And he has a series of obstacles or defeats until he eventually solves the problem. And then there's some sweet resolution at the end. So let's see if I need glasses for this. Here's our half title, pretty nice and simple. Full title, really introducing us to the book. When little mole poked his head out of his mole hole one day to see if the sun was shining, something very strange happened. It was long and brown and looked a little bit like a hot dog. Worst of all, it landed right on top of little mole's head. "Who dared to drop that on my head?" shouted little mole angrily. But being nearsighted as he was, he couldn't see who'd done it. Little mole asked a pigeon who was just flying by, "Did you do this on my head?" "Me? No, not me," answered the pigeon. "I do mine like this." Splattery splash, a wet white blotch landed right beside little mole, splattering his right leg. Then little mole asked a horse who was grazing in the field, "Did you do this on my head?" "Me? No," the horse answered. "I do mine like this." Bump, thud, thud, thump, 5 big fat horse droppings thundered down, just missing little mole. Then little mole asked a hare who was happily munching a carrot, "Did you do this on my head?" "Me? No, not me," said the hare. "I do mine like this. Rat-a-tat-tam." 15 beans started flying. Little mole barely got out of the way. And so it goes. It goes through a series of different animals, and each one describes what their poop is like, and sometimes does a sample. Do they each do a sample? Yeah, I think they do. They each do a sample. And they use, the author uses onomatopoeia, so that it's like using the sounds of what is being described. So right here, clackety clackety clack. So that's what it sounds like. And we go through, and he just keeps going. He keeps asking and asking, and each one describes their poop, and each one looks nothing like what the poop on top of his head looks like, until finally he asks the flies. Little mole looked around for another suspect, but all he saw were 2 fat flies dining. Looks like they're dining on someone else's poop. At long last, little mole thought, "I bet they can help me. Can you tell me who did this on my head?" asked little mole. "Keep still a second," buzzed the 2 flies, busily studying what was on top of little mole's head. A moment later, they shouted triumphantly, "No question about it, dog." A dog? Of course, now little mole was sure who'd done it on his head. Henry, that old hound dog. As quick as a flash, little mole. I forgot to show the picture. As quick as a flash, little mole climbed on top of Henry's doghouse. Ping! A little brown crescent landed slap dab in the middle of Henry's forehead. The deed done, a happy and satisfied little mole disappeared back into his mole hole. So that's pretty sweet, and it teaches kids about different kinds of poop, but it's also a wonderful mystery. And so you can see how it builds and builds as he's going, no, not me, no, not me, as each of the animals says, no, not me, no, not me. And it just builds and builds and builds until finally it's the flies that help him figure out. Now normally he would figure it out on his own, because generally with picture book story, the protagonist or main character, here little mole, solves the problem themselves. But in this case he gets helped by the flies. And he essentially does solve the problem himself because he wants vengeance. He wants A, to find out who did it, and B, to show them, no, it's not okay to poop on someone's head. So just remember that. It's never okay to poop on someone's head. And B, this is how a plot is constructed. Now I want to talk about, and here that, let me just read a little bit of the language, which is so delightful. Okay, look at all the D's in this. Who dared drop that on my head? So it's not alliteration. Every single word does not start with the letter D. But we've got a lot of D's in there, which are a very distinctive sound. And it makes it super charming. Who dared drop that on my head? Shouted little mole angrily. So we really get it that he's angry. He's shouting, and we hear let's use the words angrily. So yeah, listen to this. Splittery splash, a wet white blotch landed right beside little mole, splattering his right leg. So I'm not sure about the two rights there together, but the splittery splattery, a wet white blotch. I mean, isn't that fun to just say? Say, if you're up for it, say splittery splattery, a wet white blotch. And this is the sort of thing kids love, to hear that kind of language. And now I want to talk about the art a little, and one of the things that's really skillful with this is the white space, or the negative space, and how minimal the art really is, and how skillful the artist uses that negative space, the space between the actual objects, the white of the paper. So it's pretty cool. It's mostly close up. So we're up close and personal, and that makes it much more intimate. Generally it's good to show things from different perspectives, different angles. But, and this looks like it's either cut paper and marker, and I really think that might be how it's done. Not marker, sorry, oil pastels. Or it might be acrylic paint with oil pastels on the top to give all that movement. So I hope you enjoyed the story of the little mole whodunit. I want to say thank you Werner Holsworth, and thank you Wolf Earlbrook, and thank you Taborian Chang for publishing this delightful book. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I do. Bye.